Welcome to My Brussels, a new podcast from Visit Brussels, shining a light on some of the best things to see and do here in the capital of Europe. In each episode, we'll be meeting a foreign correspondent, an international journalist from different corners of the world. We'll be hearing about their work, reporting on Brussels, but above all, we'll be finding out about the city that they call home. So if you can give us 15 or 20 minutes of your time, we will give you lots of insider tips and insight about places you might not even know about. I'm Paul McNally, this is My Brussels, and in this episode...
When I arrived to Brussels, I really thought at home. A lot of people think that Brussels is not a green city, which is completely false.
We meet a Portuguese journalist, communications expert, and former EU press officer. Antonio Buscardini will be guiding us around some of his favourite places in Brussels.
My Brussels.
Moja Bruxelles.
Mon Bruxelles.
Minha Bruxelles.
Mi Bruxelles.
My Brussels.
My Brussels.
My Brussels.
Antonio, thank you for joining us on My Brussels.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Can you just trace the journey from a young Antonio growing up in Lisbon to you arriving here in Brussels? What were the steps in between?
I grew up in Lisbon, and then I studied partly in Lisbon and then in Toulouse in France. And after that, I had a first professional experience in Strasbourg. So the road was there from Lisbon to Strasbourg towards Brussels, so it was the logical next step. At the time, I was working as a press officer at the Assembly of European Regions, and then they invited me to join the Brussels office. And I stick around for another year before jumping to the other side.
So we'll talk about that sort of switch from journalism to communications and back again in a moment, but you've been in multicultural environments before, so arriving as an expat in Brussels maybe wasn't such a shock. What was your first impressions of the city?
Even though I grew up in Lisbon, I was in a French school. So my friends, I had a few Portuguese friends, but a lot of them were foreigners living in Lisbon. So I always had that mindset of being surrounded by expats, then studying abroad. So when I arrived to Brussels, I really thought at home in the sense that it's a confusion where you understand that Brussels is several capitals. It's the capital of Brussels capital region, the capital of Flanders, and a lot of people forget that, the capital of Belgium, and the capital of the EU. So this dimension at different levels of governance makes Brussels very interesting to discover. And for me, as a Portuguese expat, I mean, to connect as well with my community, as you know, there are a lot of Portuguese living here. So it was really easy for me to integrate in this city.
We will move on to some of your tips about Brussels in a moment. And you mentioned the Portuguese community there, and we'll come back to that. Let's just talk a little bit about your work. Starting out in press and communications, then switching to journalism, and now you do a bit of both.
Yeah. So I was indeed a press officer at the Assembly of European Regions. You know, being in Brussels, you meet a lot of journalists. I mean, it was part of my job to attract journalists, to get to know them, to try to pass a message. And I decided at the time to quit and to start freelancing. So I worked, first of all, here at the Press Club. I was editing their magazine. And afterwards, I did a lovely encounter in Paris with someone who challenged me to be the journalist for a TV series on traveling called Itineraries. And things flow very well, and I became a TV director. And now we have produced so far nearly 50 travel documentaries for TV5 Monde. Also that time, around 2016, in order to get to know Brussels precisely, I decided to create a news platform called Brussels Express. And we were reporting news on Belgium and Brussels for the expats. This was an amazing experience for me because I got to know the city.
You mentioned your love of travel, and in pretty much the height of the coronavirus pandemic, you launched a media outlet, a website all about travel at a time where we weren't really able to travel. But you saw an opportunity there talking about post-COVID sustainable travel. Tell us a bit about Travel Tomorrow.
Yes. So indeed, we were in 2020. In 2019, my last assignment was precisely in China. And we came back, and then COVID started, and it was obviously impossible for us to shoot, to film abroad. And having that background, that experience with Brussels Express, I thought there was an opportunity somehow. I read a paper from the UN on how we will travel tomorrow. That was the reflection. And I thought that there is something here. And I remember I was with my wife watching TV, and I just decided to register the name without really knowing what I was going to do. And then things really evolved into a traditional news outlet. And today, we passed a milestone of 5 years, 25 million visitors. We release roughly 50 articles a week. We have 7 reporters in-house. And in a nutshell, we report news on the travel and tourism industry that includes aviation, transport, sustainability, responsible tourism, issues on over-tourism, for example. And it's really a wonderful project. I mean, that's really gain its space in the city. And that I'm thrilled about it because for me, it completes part of my job in journalism with the TV. I mean, with TV, we propose destinations and we travel tomorrow. We also talk about destinations, but we inform people. It's a niche outlet where we inform people that want to follow the industry, basically.
Very briefly, before we move on to talking about Brussels, we are recording this in the Press Club, and you've just been elected president of the Brussels Press Club. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Exactly. Can you tell us a little bit about what the Press Club does?
Every major city has a press club. Brussels is not an exception. Here it has greater importance because we are in the capital of the EU. So the press club is a hub where we have several journalists that are Belgians, correspondents from multiple countries, but also freelancers, and also the pan-European press. So those that work for Politico, Euractiv, and so on. So different realities. We have, in a nutshell, 800 members. We host a year close to 500 events. So there is indeed diversity. I want to have a club where we have a conversation between different communicators and we become truly a hub.
From work to play, here on My Brussels, our job is to find some expert tips, places to see, eat, drink, relax. So we're going to ask each of our guests to come up with 5 ideas, not just obvious tourist hotspots, but some less known places as well. And we're going to start, Antonio, with, well, let's just say we are in a very busy city. So if you get to the end of a busy week at work and you need a place to go that's green, that has nature, that you can relax, what would you recommend?
I used to live in Ixelles, next to the Étang d'Ixelles. So I really love, I mean, you have the beginning of the 2 pounds and then you have at the end a small garden where there is even a church. And that place is, for me, lovely because next to a chaos, which is Place Faget, you can be in such a zen spot and somehow it's urban, because it's a small park, a hidden park. A lot of people think about Brussels, those that don't know, that Brussels is not a green city, which is completely false. I mean, we have tons of parks and a huge forest coming from Tervuren to Brussels.
The lungs of the city.
The lungs of the city. So that will be the place that I would recommend is to go to start with the Étang d'Ixelles and then go to the park. Yeah.
On a social note, you're planning an evening out with friends. Where would you recommend?
I would say in that point I'm a bit boring in the sense that it's so predictable being an expat, but I would say Place du Luxembourg, yes, because it has some history. And I mean, for those that arrive to this city and work, especially in this neighborhood, to go there, to experience a drink there, to meet people, to exchange with colleagues, to see sometimes famous people, politicians. It's a place that you truly can have a minister next to a trainee and they're having a drink and I have no idea who they are. And everybody's pretty cool about it. So for me, it's a social experience even. So it's definitely a spot that I recommend to everyone that arrives in Brussels.
We're very lucky in Brussels with lots of music, theatre, cinema, museums. So if you had to pick one place on a cultural theme, what would it be?
So my choice would be Bozar for many reasons. Professionally, I have organized a lot of things at Bozar. So Bozar is really a hub in town for culture, where you can have exhibitions, where you can have vernissage, where you can have host events, concerts. One of the greatest events I organized was the celebration of the Nowruz in Brussels. So the Nowruz is a holiday celebrated by the Central Asian countries. So Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. But it goes down until Turkey. That is something that I have really fond memories. And then simply as a citizen, I mean, I went there to multiple concerts. It is a spot that I definitely recommend to anyone who wants to get to know the Brussels vibe and the culture here in town.
We said we weren't going to talk just about tourist hotspots, but we are now, because when you have friends or family visiting from abroad, you kind of feel it's your responsibility to show them Brussels and do some touristy things. So if there was a particular landmark or attraction in the city that you would show them, what would it be?
I always explain to my friends or family that for me there is several Brussels. We can start with the Brussels from the European neighborhoods. That's something different. Starting from here, from Schumann to the Place du Luxembourg. Very quickly, I introduced them Matongué because I find fascinating how you walk from the European Parliament and suddenly you're in Matongué, and then you turn and you are in a kind of a fancy Belgian neighborhoods with Saint Boniface and typical Belgian bars, and it's just 200 meters. So I always go from there. And then a place that I really, really think it's very alive here, it is from the Place Flagey up, because there is the Portuguese community. So there are two places that I really love, which is the Garcia, which is a baker, and he does something very unique called pastéis de nata. And I'm from Lisbon, and I can tell you that those are amazing, even for Lisbon standards. And just in front, there is a Portuguese restaurant called Café Portugal that is a mix of Portuguese people, but also expats, where you can have politicians and people that live here for many years that come together and watch a football game. So my tour normally ends there, especially when I have friends from Portugal, where I'm showing the Belgium reality and then ending with a Portuguese connection.
One last thing about the Portuguese community. I think I'm right in saying that you've organised something in the Cinquantenaire Park for Portuguese food and culture. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes. So one of my clients is the Portuguese Farmers Confederation, and they launched many years ago an initiative with a Portuguese MEP called The Best of Portugal. So the idea is to bring together different companies from Portugal in the food and drink sector and present them in Brussels. Now it's a 2-day event. We welcome on average 40,000 people in 2 days. Traditionally, we have 100 stands. We have live music during 2 days. It's the best of Portugal because we bring the best products from mainland Portugal, from the islands, the Azores and Madeira, and products that are sometimes in need of being known because they are new. So new wines, new gins. It's really a fun thing to organize here in Brussels.
Antonio, thank you very much for all of your tips and your suggestions. And thank you for being one of our first guests on My Brussels.
Thank you very much.
If you heard anything there that caught your interest and you missed any of the details, you'll find all the tips in the show notes on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Thank you for listening to My Brussels. Please leave a review, share and subscribe. To explore more, head over to visit.brussels and check the What to Do section. You'll find the link in the show notes as well. And let's keep the conversation going. Follow us on LinkedIn, on Instagram and on Facebook at Visit Brussels. And if you have a tip to share, drop us a message. We would love to hear from you. Now, My Brussels is a Visit Brussels production. It's produced by Anke Harthorn and it's recorded here in the Press Club Brussels, Europe. I'm Paul McNally and we'll be back soon with more insider tips on how to explore and enjoy Brussels. We'll see you then.